Hello, this is Pastor Terry Goodman, and I want to welcome you to the Wesleyan Connection. This podcast is primarily for the clergy and laity of the Holston Annual Conference. Join with me now as I take a look around the Connection and share some of the things happening in the churches of our annual conference. Every now and then, there's a mistake made in the middle of a recording, and today is one of those mistakes. I taught at the recent prayer retreat for our confirmands a section on breath prayer and prayer walking. Unfortunately, when I went to save it, I clicked something incorrectly and I lost it. So I lost all the teaching that I did on that, so I'm going to briefly recap just the prayer walking part, because I do have a section that I was able to recover about the discussion that we had when everyone came back from a prayer walk. Now, a prayer walk, as I tried to define it that morning, was a time in which we had an opportunity to physically engage in walking around. I gave them two options. You can either walk around our neighborhood, and as you go, I want you to look at the houses. I want you to think about the people that are there. I want you to try to figure out the things that you could be praying for them. Listen to the Spirit, see what the Spirit would say to you in relation to the people that live around us. Or the second option was they could stay within the church, but I wanted them to go pew by pew through the church and imagine in their minds the people that sat in that pew. You know, that's an easy thing to do because we're creatures of habit, aren't we? We always tend to sit in the same pew, don't we? And so that was fairly easy to go and to think of each person in that pew and to offer up a prayer for that person. So I gave them two different opportunities and gave about 25 or 30 minutes for the people to go and to engage in whichever one of those options they chose. What you're about to hear now is the coming back together. After everybody's done their prayer walk, we came back together and we talked about the things that maybe God was revealing to us as we either walked around the neighborhood or walked throughout our sanctuary praying for the people that sat in those pews Sunday after Sunday. So I hope you enjoy this final podcast on prayer, and come back next week. I think I'll be heading in terms of sharing some more information from a recent conference meeting of the conference discipleship team. So join us next week for more of a conference view of things and less of a view here on prayer. We've been doing our prayer walks around the neighborhood and through the sanctuary. Any revelations along the way? Did God speak to any of you in maybe special prayers or something that you want to share? What was that experience like?
I have to be willing to win one person at a time in Big Stone Gap, because it takes one person at a time to share the gospel to, for it to spread.
My response to that would be prayer walking is not necessarily the sharing of the gospel as much as it is the planting of asking the Lord to get the fields ready, to get ready for the harvest that's to come, and then to send the laborers into the fields so that they can spread that gospel one person at a time.
Well, that was the last thing I got, as I came all the way up then after praying for all the different people. It's like, well, if I'm not willing to go knock on their door and invite them to church or give the gospel to them, I pray for them all day long. I've got to be willing to begin to step out myself. So
it's that you're the laborer. You're the laborer that the Lord is wanting to send into the field. And you're sort of the impression you got that it's not going to do any good. You've got to have the laborers, or else
I've got to be willing.
You've got to be
willing to self-sacrifice.
Okay. What else did somebody discover during their walk?
Well, it's nothing like that, but speaking to Nancy about me and Addison praying for Henry Kuhlenstadt, which is a neighbor of just the need that he has, just praying for him. To me, was a benefit. I hope just that we prayed for him that the Lord would help him, because he's
Okay.
still mourning the death of his wife and
Okay.
the severity of
so-
what he's bearing.
So as you walked by, you recognized that at this house there is a specific need that I need to be praying for.
Heck, he drove by the car.
Drove by,
I
okay.
threw the hand up, and then I started telling Addison about him and said, let's pray for him.
Okay.
Because I knew he was having a hard time releasing, or
So-
Nancy was telling that, add more to it.
So getting out in the neighborhood exposed you. If you'd been sitting in here, you wouldn't have seen him drive by.
Right.
So getting out and prayer walking gave you a chance to see someone, and the Spirit gave you the sense that this is something I need to be praying for.
Knowing he was in need.
That's one of the things about prayer walking to consider as well, is that you need to be open to what the Spirit might lead you to be praying about, so that's an important part of it. What else did somebody discover?
It helped me focus. Because sometimes when I'm praying, I draw blanks. I know there's things I need to be praying for, but they don't necessarily come to mind. And I was talking to Jamie while we were walking, pointing out, okay, I know this person lives here. Oh, okay, this is something that we can pray about for them. And that's not something that necessarily would have came to me if I were on my knees in the sanctuary praying.
Okay. So again, it opens you up to see the community around you differently, and to pray for folks. What else?
I thought of people that haven't been to church in a while as I was going along the pews and wondering, thinking, do I need to call them or, and invite them back, or find out why they haven't been here, or ask somebody else they may know. Or I thought of a lot of people that, used to fill spots like Hope Mead, Atlanta, that aren't able to come anymore.
Yeah.
And Marion, and people like that who are members, and Doris comes occasionally, of course not like she used to and all, but but as I went down pew to pew, I would, not just the ones that I see every Sunday when I'm here, but the ones that I know, oh, so and so, what happened to them? This is where they, haven't seen them in a while.
Okay. What other revelations came to y'all as you were praying?
I don't know if it would be a revelation, but of course I walked through the pews, and after I finished, I was standing in the back of the church, and a very strong feeling came over me that we needed to pray together as a church for us. So it was a very strong feeling.
Need to pray for our church. Okay. What else? So in our 25 minutes, the Lord spoke to us. The Lord, 4 of you have shared with us how the Lord's, or 5 of you did, have shared with us how the Lord seemed to be speaking to you and maybe revealing something to you. That's something for us to remember, especially for our confirmands. Prayer is about talking to God, but it's also about listening to God, trying to see what God might be saying through all these prayers. It's one thing to just say, I adore you, I confess, I give thanks, help these people, I adore, confess, thanks, help these people. But if you don't stop long enough to let the Lord talk back sometime, then you're losing out. It's great to be able to adore and confess and thanks and pray for other people, but part of prayer is also waiting to hear what God says. And by walking and sort of taking your mind off these things, these people heard from God today. God sort of spoke to them. Now, it may not have been a voice. Was it a clear voice to you, Martha? Or was it just an impression?
It wasn't an audible voice, but it was definitely just not me, trust me.
And you've heard that voice before, right?
I have, more lately so than before.
what I'm trying to say is that there's the story in the Old Testament of the young. I think we did this in the confirmation class. I forgot the name. The kid and then the Samuel.
Is Elijah was
No, is the priest was sleeping in the.
right? He kept hearing his name.
He kept hearing his name.
We did do
We did that. What was his name? Was it Sam? No, not Samuel.
I think it was.
Well, the little kid.
Samuel.
Was it Samuel?
Yeah.
Okay, Samuel, and he kept going to the priest.
What do you want?
What do you want? Samuel
my name.
was hearing the voice of God for the first time. Now, the more often you hear God's voice, the more easy it is for you to recognize that it's God and not just your imagination. See, Martha has heard that voice before. She's heard God speak to her. She's heard and felt God's presence. And so she was able to quickly discern and figure out that this is what He's telling me as I'm finishing up this walk. Part of what we need to be able to do is to get that kind of a relationship with God so that we recognize that voice when He talks to us. And that's what I'm encouraging you all to do. You may not hear that voice, so to speak, the way Martha heard it. She's had a few years more practice at it than you have. But the more you practice, the more you listen,
Amen.
the more ready and able you will be to hear that voice when it does speak.
Yes.
And you won't have to get up and go running to the priest and say, "Yeah, here I am. What do you need?" You can say, "Okay, Lord, here I am. Your servant is listening." So that's what prayer is also about. It's about that listening. That sort of got beyond what I was talking about, but it worked out nicely there. This is Pastor Goodman. Thanks for listening to this edition of the Wesleyan Connection. Be sure to check back often for more podcasts.